The galaxy had known peace only once, and it had died screaming. On the scorched moon of Valera 9, where the sky was always bruised violet and the air hummed with the radiation of 100 shattered ships, Queen Athyra of the Threne Empire sat alone upon a throne of bone and glass. Her people were gone, scattered to the void, hunted to extinction by the Terran Dominion's endless legions. The Threne had been called the Singers of Starlight, a race whose voices could bend gravity, whose cities hung in the air like frozen music. But war had stripped them of beauty, replacing melody with silence. And in that silence, the queen waited for death. Her child, the infant princess Kaelen, had been taken 6 months ago during the siege of Korath Prime, captured in the chaos as the last Threne fleet was burned from the heavens. Athyra had searched every battlefield, traced every shattered transmission, interrogated dying soldiers who whispered lies just to delay their own executions. But no trace of the child remained. She had lost everything, her armies, her court, her gods. Now, only the ghosts of her people answered her prayers. She had given up hope. To the human soldier, Sergeant Mason Hale never believed in the glory of conquest. He was a soldier because the galaxy gave him no other purpose. A man shaped by the Dominion's wars, hollowed by loss, and haunted by the face of a woman he'd killed on Vega Trench. The Dominion's propaganda said the Threne were monsters, manipulators of sound who could crack human skulls with a whisper. But Hale had seen them up close. He'd seen mothers clutching their young as orbital bombardments turned their crystalline cities to ash. He'd seen their songs fade into silence. And he'd seen one child, small and silver-skinned, weeping beside her dead guardian. That was 6 months ago. He hadn't known why he took her then. Perhaps guilt, perhaps instinct. He'd smuggled her out of the battle zone, tucked beneath his coat, pretending she was some strange, injured pet. The medics never questioned him. The Dominion didn't care for the dead, or the living unless they could fight. He called her Kaelen. She spoke little, only sang soft melodic notes that vibrated through the air and made Hale's chest ache. Over time he realized her songs were language, emotion, memory. And though he couldn't understand them, he knew they spoke of home. When orders came for a new offensive on the Threne remnants, a final extermination campaign, Hale made a decision that would brand him a traitor. He would find her mother. 3. The journey through the wastes. The route to Valera 9 was a death sentence. The Dominion's fleets patrolled the major lanes, and the planet itself was quarantined, a radioactive ruin littered with wreckage and derelict machines. Hale stole a transport from a logistics depot, bypassed orbital sensors using stolen command codes, and plunged into the void. For 3 weeks, he and the child drifted between dead systems, scavenging fuel and water from abandoned convoys. He told her stories, of old Earth oceans, of wind through grass, of birds that sang without fear. Sometimes she'd hum in response, her voice echoing through the metal hull like starlight trying to remember its source. When they finally reached Valera 9, the ship barely held together. The planet was a graveyard. Colossal wrecks of Threne arcs floated in low orbit, their hulls cracked open like eggshells. Below, the surface burned with eternal storms, lightning crawling across glassy plains. Hale landed near the last known Threne stronghold, a vast citadel half buried beneath dunes of black sand. And somewhere in that ruin, he hoped, the Queen still breathed. For the Queen in the wasteland, Athyra no longer ruled anything. The citadel that had once sung with light now echoed with the wind and the low, keening hum of broken harmonics, remnants of her people's ancient technology, decaying without care. She sat alone in the Hall of Echoes, her armor tarnished, her crown fractured, her body weakened by hunger and radiation. She no longer remembered what the stars looked like from space. When she heard the sound, the whine of an engine cutting through the silence, she thought it a hallucination. Humans had long since abandoned this ruin. The last Dominion scouts who came to hunt her never returned. Then came footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, unfamiliar. Athyra rose, her talons flexing. The old power in her throat stirred, the sonic weapon of her kind, but she hesitated. There was something else. A smaller heartbeat. Child. Her own kind. And then he appeared. A human soldier, armor scarred and dust-caked. His face drawn and weary. In his arms, wrapped in a tattered survival blanket, lay a small Threeny child. Silver skin. Luminous eyes. Thyra's breath caught. For the first time in months, she felt her pulse race. Feed the kneeling soldier. The soldier stopped at the foot of the broken dais. He dropped to one knee, not in reverence, but in exhaustion. The child stirred in his arms, looked up, and uttered a single word that struck through Athyra's heart like a blade of light. Mother! Athyra fell to her knees, trembling. She reached out, afraid to touch, afraid it was illusion. But when the child's tiny hand met hers, warmth spread through her chest, and she knew it was real. Mason Hale lowered his head, his voice hoarse. She was alone on Korath Prime. I couldn't leave her there. The Queen's gaze fixed on him, eyes like molten sapphire, fierce and weary. Why? Hale hesitated. Because someone had to do something right. For a moment, the hall was silent except for the distant rumble of storms. Then the Queen stood, her child clutched to her chest. You are human, she said softly, almost with disbelief. You bring me my heart returned. You bring hope to a grave. Hale looked up. Hope's all I've got left. 6. The return of the song. Over the next days, Hale remained in the citadel. The Queen's few surviving attendants, spectral half-cybernetic remnants of the Threeny priesthood, watched him warily. But Athyra ordered that he be fed, sheltered, and healed. He learned their ways, how they used harmonics to shape matter, how the walls themselves resonated with ancient memories. The Queen, in turn, learned of the Dominion's expansion, of the atrocities committed in the name of order. And though hate simmered in her, it was tempered by the sight of her child laughing again. Kael's voice returned first, the soft, pure tones that rebuilt the broken crystal conduits in the citadel walls. When she sang, the ruins flickered with light. Athyra joined her one evening, their harmonies merging, mother and daughter entwined. The air vibrated with energy so intense it shimmered like water. The Hall of Echoes lit up for the first time in years. Mason Hale stood in awe. It was as if the planet itself remembered what it meant to live. 7. The Hunter Fleet. But peace never lasts. The Dominion fleet found them, drawn by the energy surge. A dozen battlecruisers descended from orbit, their sensors locking on the citadel. Athyra's guards prepared for annihilation. Hale knew what the Dominion would do. No survivors, no witnesses. He turned to the Queen. They're coming for me, for us. I can buy you time. She shook her head. You have done enough. Not if they kill you all. Not after what I've seen. The Queen looked at him, truly looked. You would die for us. For her, he said, nodding at the child. And maybe for the galaxy that could have been. She placed her hand over his heart. Then you are no longer only human. You are Threeny by choice. The final song. When the Dominion fleet entered the lower atmosphere, the ground trembled. Athyra stood upon the citadel's highest platform, her child in her arms, Hale beside her in battered armor. The storm gathered around them, drawn by the resonance of their power. Teach me, Hale said quietly. How to sing? The queen smiled faintly. Your kind cannot shape sound as we do, but you can lend it strength. She pressed her palm to his chest. Follow my breath. And then she sang. It was not a song of sorrow, but of fury, of birth, death, and rebirth. Her voice rose into the sky, harmonizing with her daughter's pure tone, weaving layers of sound that bent light and shattered air. Hale shouted with them, his voice raw, his blood vibrating. The resonance built until the clouds split open, and the Dominion's first missiles froze midair, their molecules unbound by the harmonic storm. The ships began to tear apart, screaming metal dissolving in waves of sonic fire. From orbit, Valera 9 glowed like a newborn star. And then silence. 9. Aftermath. When Hale awoke, he was lying in a crater of glass. The air was calm. The sky was no longer purple, but a soft, clean blue. The citadel stood renewed, rebuilt by sound and will. The queen knelt beside him, her armor shining once more. Her child slept against her shoulder. You lived, she said softly. Guess I'm too stubborn to die. Athyra smiled, a small, weary, genuine smile. Then live well, human. The Threeni will remember your name. He tried to stand, but she placed a hand on his shoulder. Your people will come again. You must return to them. Tell them what you saw. Tell them what they destroyed, and what yet endures. And you. We will rebuild. Quietly. Patiently. The galaxy will hear our song again, not as conquerors but as survivors. Hale hesitated. Will I ever see you again? The queen tilted her head. Every time the stars sing, you will know we still live. She turned, her voice rising once more, soft, hopeful, eternal. The citadel shimmered, and before his eyes it vanished, folding into light and dispersing across the horizon. Epilogue: The Song of Two Worlds. Years later, on the colony world of New Arcadia, a young engineer named Mason Hale sat on a hillside at night, watching the auroras dance across the sky. From somewhere deep in the cosmos, a familiar melody echoed faintly through the static of his radio. Pure, harmonic, and heartbreakingly beautiful. He smiled. He knew that somewhere out there, among the ruins and reborn stars, an alien queen sang again, and that her song carried the memory of a human who knelt before her, holding her child and gave her back hope.